Hello everybody, Crypto Chaperone here, and today I want to talk to you guys about a great ICO that I think is coming out that has giant potential to disrupt the crypto community space, and it's pretty much one of the first developments and platforms that I've seen developing in this specific sector. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about Bluzelle. Now, Bluzelle is a decentralized database service for the world's decentralized apps. Now, you might be saying there's already decentralized database and servers out there like SIA and Filecoin and Storj, but those are pretty much decentralized file servers. Now, they're kind of the same because they both work along the same aspect of sharding. Now, sharding essentially is when you take a file, you break it up into millions and millions of small pieces, you encrypt those small pieces, and you put them into a bunch of computers. So if anybody was to get a hold of any of these pieces or small pieces, they wouldn't be able to get a hold of the whole file. And also, if something were to happen where there was an attack on a part of the network or something like that, and part of the network were to go down, they essentially wouldn't knock out the whole file. Like if you've seen, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago, you had pretty much a portion of the internet down when the Amazon, I think it was their S3 servers, were really acting up, and websites all over the internet were having trouble doing anything because everybody's web server more or less ran through that. So when that went down, everybody's server went down, and this can essentially stop that from happening, as well as things like the fappening, if you were aware of that, where somebody broke into a cloud server and got into all these celebrities' naked pictures. Essentially, you can do that in cloud servers and centralized databases because you can get into the load balancer and you can replicate the load balancer and you can go out and hack into other cloud servers. And you had that same situation happen with the Equifax hack too, where they replicated the cloud server and got in and they stole a lot of people's information from Equifax, which just happened not too long ago. So this is definitely something that as time grows, I think it's going to make just more and more of a major impact on cryptocurrencies. Now, as I said, that this isn't kind of in the same aspect as SIA Coin, Filecoin, Storj, and stuff like that. It's not really competing with those more or less because those are file storage systems. Now, essentially on a file storage system, you're going to store a text file, a picture file, MP3, MP4, something like that, a movie file, and it's going to shard the movie file throughout the network and stuff like that. And when you pull that file back from the network, it's going to come as a whole file. But essentially on the Bluzelle network, it's going to be a database. Now on this database, you're going to put decentralized apps, and these are going to be responsive apps that are going to work back and forth with users, and they're not going to be just solid files that are downloadable and kind of like readme only things and things where you have to pull the whole file. It's going to be a fully responsive database. So it's going to be very interesting as time goes on. Now, Bluzelle kind of came together around 2014, and the creators of Bluzelle were working with some major companies. They were working with Microsoft and I think some insurance companies to try to help integrate their the aspects of their company into blockchain technology. And a lot of things that they were running into as they were trying to integrate it with Ethereum was just kind of congestion and implications and stuff with getting it onto the Ethereum network and putting it strictly through Ethereum and other apps that were on Ethereum. So then they went into Microsoft Azure and they tried to work with the coding on Azure to integrate it with blockchain technology. And more or less what happened was they were having a very latent network and it was very slow and nothing was really coming together quick. So their best option was to go onto the Ethereum network and create their own contract and their own token that essentially was a decentralized database, which was what they were trying to create all along, and had to go out and work with each one of these companies individually to create their blockchain specifically for this database specification. Now, there's going to be all these companies that can go straight on the Bluzelle network and platform more or less, and they're going to be able to just put their decentralized apps on there, and they're not going to have to work with changing up any of their coding to integrate it into the blockchain technology, since this app is already going to be out there and it's going to be working in the most sufficient way for these apps to work as well. Basically, the Bluzelle ICO, I'm going to talk about that. It's going to be starting in a little over a week. It's supposed to be starting January 18th, and to participate in the ICO, you need to go through a KYC process and to have been whitelisted. Essentially, I think everybody that was whitelisted, the ICO, I think, is going to get sold out in the whitelist stage. I don't think it's going to get open for any public sale. But essentially, to get whitelisted, there was a flash whitelisting that occurred, I think, and it was maybe October or September, something like that. And then there was another whitelisting that opened up for a few days back in the beginning of December. And you had the opportunity to sign up, put up your email and all that. And essentially, to get onto this whitelist or to even be aware of it, more or less, you had to be in their Telegram channel, or you had to be very active in their community, because they were not announcing this everywhere. So if you are interested in any tokens or any coins like that, any ICOs that are potentially coming out, I strongly encourage you guys to be active with them as much as possible. Follow them on Twitter, join their Telegrams and Slacks, because that is where the developers are always at, and people are asking direct questions, and you can more or less get a direct response. I see always questions about a whitelist, because a whitelist more or less ensures that everybody gets an equal opportunity in an ICO. In an ICO, you could have whales if there's no whitelist or no hard cap or individual hard cap, more or less, where people are limited on how much they can buy. You'll have whales that can come in and buy up a decent amount of this token, and it doesn't give other people the opportunity to buy, because the whales will spend a decent amount of gas on the Ethereum network, and their transaction will go through before everybody else's, and they end up just buying a decent amount of the portion, or a decent portion of the token, and they control a heavy amount of it. So when it does get released on the exchanges, more or less, everybody is competing against this whale who is selling their token, and they have a lot of pull on the market price. So whitelisting is definitely something you want to pay attention to if you are looking to invest, and you always want to be active in the community. I also want to note that their Telegram channel has grown massively over the last week, 2 weeks. It was down at about 9,000 to 10,000 members, and now it is up to, last night when I checked, it was about 17.7 thousand members. And that is quickly growing to be one of the biggest ICO communities, and one of the biggest Telegram cryptocurrency coin communities out there. So there's a few bigger than that. I know I'm a part of like Nucleus and stuff like that have a few more people in it, but it is growing very quick because a lot of people are getting a major interest in this whole project space. I also want to reiterate that their KYC process is kind of being delayed at the moment. If you did get an email about signing up for their KYC process, it was supposed to run from the 4th of January, I think, until like the 10th or 11th or something like that. It was going to be a full week. And what they ran into, more or less, was there were so many people that were not whitelisted that were trying to access this verification KYC page, that they essentially started to crash the servers and people couldn't get onto it, because you had so many people pretty much DDoSing this page. So they are trying to get all that worked out at the moment. Earlier when I checked, it still was not available, but they said within 24 to 48 hours it should be up and working. So they are also going to be running it for a solid week, the KYC process, once it does get up and running. So it's not like it's going to get up and running in 2 days and you're only going to have 2 days to fill it out. They said it's going to run a solid week. So that could potentially push back the ICO date maybe a day or two, depending on if this KYC process does get delayed a little bit. But other than that, I would see no reason why there would be any delay or anything like that. But who knows? If you do want to stay active in this, join their Telegram and stuff like that, and you will learn a ton about this whole project. So I'm pretty much just going to go through their website, go through their white paper. So as I said, they started to come together in 2014. They have 2 places they're based in, Vancouver and Singapore. So Bluzelle combines the sharing economy with the token economy, renting individuals' computer storage space to earn tokens, while DApp developers use tokens to have their DApp data stored and managed. Essentially, pretty much the same thing as how SIA and Storage A work. As I said, they shard the information, they put it on a bunch of these computers. Now, the difference between Bluzelle and these is Bluzelle is kind of having swarms. They're going to have smaller swarms of computers that are storing information, like information, more or less. So you might have some sports information over here, you might have cooking information over here, stuff like that. Now, not essentially that exact stuff, but it's going to be breaking things up into different genres and data sections. And then those swarms are going to be managed by a meta swarm. And this swarm is going to just make sure everything in it is running correctly. It's going to manage the payments, and it's going to work on distributing the information and making sure the whole network runs properly, more or less. And on these swarms are going to be tons of computers, anybody who wants to participate in this network. So what you essentially do is you turn your computer on, you download the software necessary to run this program, and you would, depending on what you wanted to do, you would have to put up some tokens to become a storage system, more or less. It would be a proof of stake system, and that would be, you would have to put up some Bluzelle tokens to pretty much prove yourself that you are in this for the long run, or you are a very trustworthy person, I'll put it as. I'm not really sure how I want to word it, but more or less, if you don't keep your computer system on, or you try to do anything bad with your system while the files are on your system, or you keep turning it on and off, or you disconnect from the network for any reason, or your network is just not fast, you have some problems with your RAM or something like that, it's just you have some speed issues, then some of your Bluzelle tokens will be deducted and given to the person who has their files and stuff stored on your computer in compensation for your reduced network accessibility, I guess. That is one way that they're going to be able to help out by keeping only solid people and trustworthy people who really want to do this on the network. That is exactly how SIA and stuff like that works as well. And I looked into this a lot, but I couldn't find out exactly if they have the same aspect as SIA. Now I know SIA has they store people's information on all different computers, and one of the questions that would come up is what happens if people would turn off their computers or information lost. Now essentially you had to have a majority of the computers on, so if you had like 100 computers, I think it was as long as like 51 computers of the computers stayed on, your entire file would be able to be pulled back and intact. But if over 51% of the, or over 50% of those computers went off, then your file would potentially be lost. But essentially, as a computer shut off, your file would be redistributed through this swarm network onto more computers, and it would be kind of backed up more or less and put onto other devices as it got pulled off of other devices. So it's going to continuously be moving around, and it's going to be getting everywhere. And the more people that shut their computers off, it's still going to be branching out into other places. So you should be safe in the long run, just like in those things. As I talked about, they worked for Microsoft, and they worked with Microsoft. They worked for some, I think it was insurance companies, or they worked with a lot of big companies, pretty much trying to integrate their technology onto the blockchain network. Some of the stuff that they offer is the swarm technology, how I talked about. You pretty much break up the information, you encrypt it, and throw it all out on a bunch of different computers. But these computers are more or less going to be in their own kind of like little genres and data selection areas where they're going to be just kind of they're going to have like data stored on them, is the way I could put it. So we go down through here, and it shows some companies that they've already built trusted blockchain technology enterprises for. Pretty much one of the ones that everybody on here notices is Microsoft. Other than that, you have some Chinese companies, HSBC, Temenos. I'm sure as time goes on, these companies are going to grow, and you're going to have more companies that are known by the general public in here, and more companies that are Fortune 500 companies, and it's going to grow because these companies are going to continue to try to integrate into blockchain technology. The token sale details are, the targeted funds are $19.5 million. Now that isn't, to me personally, for this project, that's pretty low. I was in projects that had 5,000 and 10,000 people that were interested in it, and the US dollar hard cap was set at like $45-50 million, and it still eventually sold out, but and the token still is going up in price. The tokens are still going up in price, but essentially it was a decent hard cap to fill in the first place. But this one has so many people interested in it, essentially, that I don't think it's, if they do offer it to the public, aside from the whitelisting opportunity, I don't think it's going to go to the public. I think this is going to get sold out very quickly. They're only offering 165 million tokens in the crowd sale, which is essentially 33% of their token supply of 500 million. The only currency accepted is going to be Ether, and as I talked about, it was going to be starting on January 18th. You scroll down, you can see how they plan to distribute their token. 33% is getting distributed to the public, 27% is reserved for future use and staff. You've got 15% to founding team, 15% to advisors and initial investors and strategic partners, and developer and community growth. So essentially what The reserve for future use and staff, that's kind of just going to be what is, I think, given out onto the network as incentive for people to want to store their files and want to rent out their hard drive, essentially, from people that don't want to go out on the exchanges and buy these tokens. I think they're going to give out some sort of an incentive to begin with, based on how you do with the software and all that. I think they give you, they have like a beta version running or maybe something like that. I forget. But essentially, the 27% was the only thing that kind of alarmed me for reserve for future use and staff, aside from maybe just trying to get it on exchanges or something like that, just kind of like some side wallets. Because you also have founding team members, and these are individual people who are keeping their money, and you have your advisors and the initial investors, which were some big Chinese investment companies. There are some prominent VC-backed companies, Global Brain in Japan, Lund Partners from China, and Kinetic Capital in Hong Kong were three major VCs that backed this project. So essentially, their money is in this 15% reserve down here. If you scroll down, it'll show how they want to use their funds. 55% is going to be used on research and development, and 25% is going to be used on sales and marketing. It's always good when you have 75% of your token funds being used on pretty much everything that is going to be happening with your coin. 5% on legal and accounting compliance. Operations, which are pretty much just getting the network going, or network costs would be your 10%, but operations would be pretty much setting up any buildings or anything like that, hiring new people to work for them, developers, branching out and stuff like that. And we go down here, you can sign up for an email list, but it's kind of pointless at this point unless you just want to get information about how the project is doing over time. More or less, the email list was to get notified of the whitelisting when it was available. But sometimes I'm not sure if I did get an email about the whitelisting or I was just paying attention in the Telegram channel. But a lot of times, even if you sign up for some of these and they say they'll alert you when the whitelisting opportunity is available, they still sometimes don't alert you. So I'm going to reiterate, always stay active in the Telegram channel. You can always click on the search button in Telegram and just type in whitelist and see what comments have come up about whitelisting and see if that is anything that has been talked about recently. Or even check the pinned messages. A lot of times they'll pin a message up at the top, a big long message about everything about their project and developments and stuff like that. We're going to go down to their team more or less. They've got a pretty extensive team, and some of these people are very highly qualified for their positions, and some of these people are kind of just new and introductory people in this position. And you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as being inexperienced people in this position, but I think based on how experienced some of these people are, that you could look at the inexperienced people as just more or less being apprentices. As long as they have the go-get attitude and the hard-working attitude to succeed in this space, there's no reason why they wouldn't follow the reins of the more dominant developers, as I would say, I guess, in this space. A more dominant developer isn't going to sit back and watch someone do something stupid. One of these newcomers or people that have less experience than them, these people are going to be learning off of the more superiors in their group. Your CEO here is Pavel Baines. Now, Pavel Baines worked in the financial aspect in Disney. He also worked with Microsoft, and he worked with a few video game companies, one of which was 3-Wave Software, and I think he worked in marketing there, something like that. He's mediumly qualified for this, but he is more or less, he's their CEO, he's a good public speaker, he knows their project well, and he relay it to the public very well and get their understanding of it going. If we go to their next one, we've got Niraj, who was he was in part of Zero Block back in like 2014. He worked for Google. I forget what else he did. Trying to grab notes on all these people as much as I could. More or less just the first couple, but the downside to this that I have noticed is just when you scroll over it, a lot of times they'll give you like a clickable thing that you can click and kind of scroll down. Now, when you go down to their advisors, essentially they kind of have like a little area of what their advisors have done and accolades of their advisors. But it would also be nice if their team kind of had like their LinkedIn profiles or something hooked to this as like links that you could click on. But other than that, you have, I didn't really get to look into too many of these people. I mean, I did look into them. Some of them, as I talked about, were a little less qualified for the positions, and some of them were very overqualified for the positions. So I think it's going to come together as a nice neutral ground for this whole platform. We go down to their advisors. Now, if you look at their advisors, you have Prashant Malik. And Prashant Malik was an engineer at Simons and Facebook. He was a co-founder of LimeRoad. I'm going to have to look at this. I got my notes over here. LimeRoad social discovery platform. And so, I mean, that's a good, their advising, whole advising panel is very, very good, I would say. And more or less everybody in this project, I'd say, it comes together, it boils together as just it's a pretty good project, more or less. You have people who are underqualified in some aspects, people who are very overqualified, and you know, you're never going to have someone that's underqualified, especially in a project where people have this much qualification, this much extensive history in developing and programming and blockchain technology. They're not going to sit back and watch somebody who is underqualified for something mess something up or do something wrong. They're going to help them out, and that's why I think it's going to be kind of an apprentice situation. Because you have so many people who are overqualified for this, there's no reason why they shouldn't go out and kind of help each other out and help more people learn about this ever-growing space. So, someone else, we've got Brian Fox here. Brian Fox was, what was he? What do we got here? He created the software that people still use to this day on Mac and Linux back in 1989. And he has a very open source philosophy. He understands open source coding and stuff like that. So he's definitely, this project plans to have open source code and stuff like that. So he's definitely going to be utilized in that aspect, more or less. You have Gil Pacina, who was an original eBay investor. And I think he invested in like 6 companies or something that went over $1 billion in his investment or something like that. Something crazy. Like, he invested in 6 companies that grew to $1 billion. But he's a very prominent investor. And you have all of these other people who are a core. You have Alex Leverington, and he was one of the core Ethereum developers. You have Ryan Fugger. Sorry if I pronounce it, I'm not really sure. But he was one of the original creators of Ripple, and I'm sure recently everyone's seen Ripple going off. I mean, it doesn't really correlate with it in any way, but if you have a project that is solid, you're going to have another project that's solid. You have Brian Leo, who is the CEO of Smith & Crown, which is essentially an ICO platform that lists ICOs and stuff like that, and they kind of review them. And you can go through here and just look at everybody else. They have extensive advisors and team members who are skilled in developing blockchain security, cognitive science, everything. They kind of all bring something together, and that's why I think it's a great project, because the whole team kind of boils together. So at the very bottom of the page, you can connect with them. You can see who they're backed by, as I talked about, Global Brain, Lund Partners, Kinetic Capital. They also are backed by 8 Decimal Capital, Hashed, Kryptonite One, and they've been featured on a lot of places too. So great project, I think, in the long run. You can join their Telegram channel down here at the bottom of the page as well. Check out their Medium, check out their that's their Telegram, their Reddits, their Slack, their GitHub page or whatever, Twitter, their social media pages. And for the most part, that's this page. And other than that, they have the white paper. Now, the white paper just kind of talks about how it's going to be a decentralized database platform, what it's going to do. Essentially, there's going to be the BLZ token, which is the Bluzelle token, which is going to be what everybody is trading on exchanges. But if you are a member of the actual Bluzelle network, you're going to be trading based on BNT tokens, which are going to be just exclusive to the Bluzelle network. And when you get out of the Bluzelle network and start trading on exchanges and stuff like that, you're going to have the BLZ token. In situations like SIA and stuff like that, SIA is rewarded in SIA coins, and people pay for their storage space in SIA coins, and then SIA is directly just pulled out into, exchanges and stuff like that. So they don't really have two coins. And that's kind of like SIA was one of the first decentralized storage systems that I really looked into and looked really into in depth. And I invested in it heavily back when it was like a fraction of a penny. And I really learned a lot about decentralized storage from that and how it works. And basically, a lot of these companies that are continuing to come out over the time work off the same systems. The sharding aspect, Swarm is kind of coming out more and more. Swarming is coming out on mesh networks as well. So, yeah, more or less, I haven't really heard of too much other Swarm technology going on aside from like the Swarm token, which I think just kind of works in the same aspect. It's just got Swarm technology. You kind of place things in certain areas and Swarm finds the easiest way to bring it to you. But essentially on this Swarm technology, they're breaking up all of your pieces into small pieces, or all of your files or your apps into small pieces and storing them on the network. So they're sharding on a Swarm situation kind of, and then they're going to pull all those pieces from the whole Swarm. Basically, not too much you really have to look through in here. They have kind of what it is comparative to. You have applications where you can, like your Facebook is a social application. You have Status, which is comparative to Facebook, but it's the decentralized social network. And you have operating systems like Windows, and you have Ethereum, which you can create contracts and run contracts and stuff through, essentially like kind of like a computer. Then you have file storage, which is like Amazon Web Services, how I talked about how SIA, Filecoin, Storage, stuff like that. They essentially kind of break up individual files and store files and not really responsive applications. So down here we get to the data storage and management. Essentially, they are competing with the current Internet of Oracle, which is a data storage management system, and the more decentralized edition would be Bluzelle. So they're not really competing with anybody that's currently in this space, as closely related as they are to SIA and Filecoin and stuff like that. I personally don't think they're really competing with them because it's kind of a different aspect. So the history of Bluzelle, 2014 they came together. They've got one of their offices in Vancouver, Canada, as I talked about. Another office is in, I think, Singapore. Then they started getting their funding back in 2016, so it was almost 2 years ago that they started getting their initial funding. Then they just continued from there. So I'm not going to really read through all this. This is kind of something I was talking about. This is cloud centralized server systems. You have your load balancer here. Now someone could get into the load balancer, replicate the load balancer, and they can get into all your other cloud servers and hack into them. You have just your old system where if one of these were to get shut down or something were to happen to one of the servers or something throughout your database, then the whole database goes down. And now we have Bluzelle, which essentially if one of these computers were to go down or something were to happen to one of the servers in the database or one of the computers in the swarm, it's not going to knock out your whole file or cause any problems to your applications that are running. And we can go down, we can see the problems, stuff like that with the old system, the new system. Here is your token, your BLZ token, that's your ERC20 token, and then your Bluzelle network token, which is essentially just the Bluzelle network, which is going to be the swarm network that everybody is hosting and storing their information on and stuff like that. And that's going to be the BNT token. We have the withdraw method for it. So you would send the one BNT token to the special Bluzelle gateway. The Bluzelle gateway would convert the BNT token to a 1-to-1 ratio to Bluzelle tokens, and then you would send these Bluzelle tokens to the producer's registered Ethereum wallet. So I'm assuming through the network you would have to have a profile, you'd have to have a connected Ethereum wallet. Whenever you sent Bluzelle tokens in from an exchange, you'd have to convert them to BNT to use the network, and vice versa when you pulled them out into an exchange. So then they've got their revenue model, stuff like this. Not too much. I'm starting to run out of computer battery because I was not intelligent and didn't plug my computer in for the long run here. For the most part, that's Bluzelle, guys, and I think it's a very promising project that has some extreme potential in this ever-growing cryptocurrency space. So far, I haven't seen very many people who are out there really competing with Bluzelle, aside from what you would think See a coin and Filecoin, maybe they have some overlapping correlations there, but I think Bluzelle is kind of the first foot in the door for the decentralized data management, and for people to really put their decentralized apps onto a whole network. So mostly I'm going to leave you guys with this, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys next week. I'll see ya.